I remember watching the screen flickering in those relentless cold court lights. The audience hushed. My heart pounded in my chest, a steady drumbeat of despair, as I heard the judge speak. "Mr. Thompson, please explain why you chose to attend a football game rather than support your wife during the birth of your child." There was a tight knot in my throat. I wanted to scream, to drown out his eloquence with my raw anguish, but all I could do was stare at the screen. "Your Honor," Mark said smoothly, a condescending smile plastered on his face. "I'm a partner at my firm. I had an important client at the game, an opportunity I simply couldn't miss." I felt the heat wash over me like a dark fog creeping through a forest. How could he say such things? I was lying on that cold hospital bed, tears rolling down my cheeks, wishing he would slide through the door, holding my hand. Instead, I sat there, an afterthought. My perfect husband turned into an unapologetic stranger. Flashes of memories flooded through my mind, and the courtroom faded away. I was back to that hopeful day in April, when I first met him in a sun-drenched downtown cafe, where laughter and excitement filled the air. The smell of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the sweet scent of pastries. I could still hear the ringing of the bell as he walked in, charismatic, with deep brown eyes that sparkled with mischief. "You can't be serious," I laughed, leaning over the small table, spilling coffee on my shirt. "You really think you can take me on a dance-off?" "Oh, I know I can," he replied, a self-assured smile crossing his lips. "But you're welcome to try." I was spellbound, lost in the moment. There was warmth in his presence, a promise of the future wrapped in soft whispers of affection. But how many times have I walked that path of innocence before realizing that warmth would soon turn to icy shadows? As the months rolled on, I found myself pulled deeper into his world. Mark had a way about him that drew people near, a captivating magnetism. But beneath that charm lay a darkness that was veiled in his impeccable manners and elaborate excuses. It started slowly. Friends began to fade like photographs left in the sun too long. "You don't need them, babe," he'd say, wrapping his arms around me. "You have me. That's all that matters." I clung to his words like a lifeline, even as echoes of laughter faded away. My confidants transformed into distant memories. The more isolated I became, the richer our love story felt. Or at least that's what I thought. "You'll never survive on your own, you know." Was that a warning I had to heed? Or was it just him tightening the chains of dependency? Each insinuation wove a tighter knot in my heart, binding me more to him. "Mark, are you sure you can't come over tonight? Molly and I are doing a small get-together. I'd really love it if you joined." "I got to work, sweetie. You know how it is. But I'll make it up to you," he would say, grazing my shoulder as if that was enough to soothe the pang of disappointment wound tightly inside of me. The years wore on, and I became a working clock, wound tightly in his rhythm. "You shouldn't worry about finances," he'd tell me as I'd try to balance our mounting bills. "Focus on the baby and your recovery." With each passing day, I felt myself becoming less of who I was, a muted version of my former self. Memories of joyful conversations were replaced by relentless worries about our financial state. The veins of my freedom slowly drained away, leaving me vulnerable and exposed. The birth of our child was supposed to be magical, the binding tie that would solidify our union. Instead, it turned into a dagger thrust into my heart when I saw him smiling bright and lively on the big screen, with thousands of cheering fans, while I struggled with the ache of motherhood from a hospital bed alone. I gripped the railing of the examination table tightly, my vision blurred as I celebrated the arrival of our child, tethered by feelings of neglect and loss. As I sat there, a storm brewing inside me, the sound of his laugh still ringing in my ears from that glorious cafe, I suddenly had clarity. I had to reclaim my strength. I would no longer be the backdrop to his show. Everything had changed, and the time had come to take action. I left the courtroom, determined to shatter the glass walls he had built around me, and I would soon find myself alone in the house, once filled with laughter and love, armed with keys that had been so liberating moments ago. And just like that, with each click of the lock, I knew I was about to unfold a story of my own. Image prompt. A young woman with long, dark hair, standing alone in a dimly lit courtroom, eyes filled with a mix of despair and determination. She wears a flowy blue dress that billows slightly, symbols of hope for a brighter future. The weight of silence enveloped me as I stepped back into our home, the air thick with the scent of perfume that felt increasingly foreign. It clung to the walls like a ghost, remnants of the life I once cherished, the whisper of conversations that now felt like echoes in a dark tunnel. I surveyed the living room, still decorated with the remnants of our happy moments, photographs, knickknacks, even the plush couch where we would cuddle on lazy Sundays. But now, it all felt like a stage set for a performance that had gone awry. I dropped my purse on the table, and with it, the heavy feeling of betrayal settled like a brick in my stomach. I had to confront the betrayal, and the first step in that direction was to dig deeper into the wreckage of our life. My fingers trembled as I opened my laptop, the bright screen illuminating the shadows in the room. My heart raced as I began to scroll through our shared bank accounts. That was when I saw it. A wisp of a receipt, dated the same day as the birth, for 2 tickets to a football game. I squinted at the screen, disbelief swirling within me like a dark storm. I muttered to myself, he really did choose a game over me, over our child. The realization pierced through me like a dagger. Tears prickled at the corners of my eyes, more out of rage than sorrow, as I recalled the image of Mark smiling down at his phone on that day, looking utterly unconcerned from my hospital bed. I needed to know more. That nagging desire to unearth everything buried beneath the surface began to transform into an all-consuming fire. I would not be a victim any longer. I would turn into the detective of my own life. Days passed, and as I pieced together Mark's comings and goings, I became more methodical. I followed him one foggy Thursday evening, wrap after wrap of my scarf around my throat to ward off the chill that settled in my bones. My heart thudded as I witnessed him laugh and mingle with colleagues at a bar, his voice slicing through the air like a melody. The sight twisted my stomach into knots. Why is he so carefree while I'm drowning? I whispered under my breath, tucked away behind a tree, half hidden from the glow of the bar's neon lights. I snapped a few pictures with my phone, determined to gather evidence, like a seasoned investigator catching my prey. As the night wore on, I watched as he leaned in close to a woman, laughter spilling forth, words exchanged like sweet nothings that didn't include me. I couldn't let this continue. I needed help. The next day, I called an old friend, someone who had always been there for me in subtle ways. Megan was a family law attorney, sharp-witted and confident, someone who had seen more than her share of surmounting injustices. I could hear the surprise in her voice when I reached out. "Hey Megan, it's me." My tone was unsteady, a mixture of vulnerability and determination. "Can we meet?" "Of course. I can be at that cafe in 30 minutes. What's going on?" I took a deep breath as I glanced upward at the nostalgic cafe's awning, the same one where Mark and I had shared our first laughter. "I'll tell you everything when you get here." When she arrived, she wore a professional blazer, her auburn hair pulled back in a sleek bun, her intensity radiating through her polished demeanor. "You look like you've been through hell, girl," she said softly, compassion breaking through her businesslike facade. "What happened?" I lowered my voice, cheeks burning from the hurt that had lingered too long. "Mark, he missed the birth of our child. I thought it was work, but I found a receipt for a game." My words spilled out, each one dragging more emotion than I expected. Megan's eyes were a mixture of empathy and indignation. "What an absolute jerk. Have you talked to him?" I scoffed, leaning back in my chair. "Talked? What would be the point? I barely recognize him anymore." She nodded, doing her best to keep her shock at bay. "Let's make a plan. I can help you gather the evidence. And if we need to, we can take him to court." "Court? Are you serious?" I would have never thought. I paused, an ember of hope igniting within me. "I just want to know the truth. Every little piece matters. Then we'll be on the lookout, and I'll support you every step of the way." Her presence was reassuring, like a warm blanket on a cold night, and I felt the spark of companionship bloom anew. With Megan on my side, I wasn't just a hurt wife anymore. I was a fierce warrior, armed with the knowledge that I was not alone. As I stepped out of the cafe, the sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light across the street. I caught my reflection in a nearby window, eyes lined with determination, shoulders squared, and I felt like I was reclaiming parts of me that had been lost. It wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to embrace this battle. That night, I prepared myself for what lay ahead. I gathered every scrap of evidence, laying them out on the dining table like pieces of a puzzle waiting to come together. My resolve was firm. With each detail I uncovered, I knew I was one step closer to shattering the chains Mark had wrapped around my heart. Image prompt. A young woman with long dark hair pulled back in a bun, sitting at a cafe table piled high with papers, eyes brimming with a fierce determination. She wears a tailored navy blazer, and her expression radiates confidence and resolve, while the soft golden light streams through the window behind her. My mind raced in the silence of the house, the hollow clicks of the locks echoing like gunshots in my ears. I had spent countless hours piecing together every shred of evidence, like a tapestry of betrayal woven so intricately that even I could hardly be believed. But now, armed with the truth, I had to confront Mark. The day had settled into a warm, languid evening. Shadows crept across the walls, and the stillness wrapped around me like a thick fog. I paced the living room, my heart hammering as I turned the papers over and over in my mind. It was time. I had to lay everything bare. As I heard the familiar sound of his car pull into the driveway, my stomach dropped. I slid my fingers across the edge of the dining table, feeling the cool wood under my trembling hands. With each footstep I heard approaching, my resolve turned into a blazing fire. Mark stepped through the door, a wave of joy lighting up his face when he realized I was home. "Hey, babe. I didn't think you'd be here," he said casually as he tossed his keys on the table. "Mark," I started, my voice steadier than I felt. "We need to talk." He frowned, the smile faltering slightly. "About what? You look serious." I let out a shaky breath, steeling myself. "I found the receipt for the football tickets, the ones dated the same day you missed, the birth of our child." His expression morphed. The jovial facade was replaced with something darker. "Oh, come on. Not this again. Really? You're still hung up on that? You know how important this client was." I felt my anger flare. "Important enough to miss the birth of our child? You chose a game over being with me. Us." He met my gaze, the warmth of his brown eyes replaced with icy irritation. "You're being irrational. I had work commitments. You know that. I also know that I saw you on television, celebrating like you didn't have a care in the world while I was here alone," I shouted, my emotions spilling over like a dam breaking free. "Alone? You weren't alone. You had the nurses, and it's not like you were dying. You were giving birth." "It happens all the time, honey," he countered, voice low and steady but laced with sharpness. I felt the weight of his words pressing down on me, twisting the knife he had already plunged into my heart. "You're trying to twist this back on me. How can you sit here and spew excuses when there's an entire truth waiting to be unraveled?" For a moment, I saw a flicker of something, guilt, before it vanished entirely, replaced by a smug arrogance. "Imagine if you told this to anyone else, the nurses, your family. They'd think you're crazy. You know that. You're overreacting." "Overreacting?" I asked incredulously. "Mark, you missed one of the most important moments of our lives for a football game. You can't just brush this off." He stepped forward, invading my personal space, and I could almost feel the pressure radiating off him. "You're making a scene for no reason. It's pathetic." I took a step back, fear weaving through my body as I felt the tears of frustration prick at my eyes. "So, I'm pathetic for wanting answers." I bit my lip, trying to suppress the tremble creeping into my voice. "Everyone has limits, Mark. You're pushing mine." He laughed, a mocking sound that sliced through me. "Limits? What limits? You've become so consumed by this drama you're creating. I hardly recognize you anymore. Focusing on that dumb receipt instead of focusing on our life together." My mind spun with confusion, the haze of gaslighting thickening around my thoughts. Was I really the crazy one? "I'm not making this up. You made a choice that day. A choice that hurt me. Us." But he was already shaking his head dismissively, a practiced look of amusement crossing his face. "Let's not play the victim here. This is just you wanting attention." Attention? The hollow ache of despair coursed through my veins. I felt trapped as his words stung like venom. "This isn't about attention. This is about being honest," I shot back, though even I wasn't sure anymore if I was crying out for understanding or validation. "Honestly?" He crossed his arms, standing tall and formidable. "Then let's be honest. You're wallowing in self-pity. You're trying to tarnish my name when anyone who knows us would tell you I'm a good husband." The room spun dizzyingly, the air around us thickening with tension. How could he act like this? Who was this man standing before me? The warmth I used to feel for him faded into a chilling emptiness I could scarcely comprehend. You know what? Let's get everyone involved. Let's ask our families what they think. You'll be the one left in the dark, Mark dared, leaning closer, the condescension practically radiating off him. I swallowed hard, my mouth feeling dry as gravel. You think I'm that weak? I'll face them. Good luck with that, he sneered, stepping back, straightening his shoulders. You won't come out unscathed. He walked past me, completely unfazed, and I stood paralyzed, clawing at the suffocating reality of twisted words and gaslit truths. What I thought was courage felt more like standing on a cliff's edge, the ground crumbling beneath me. Would anyone believe me? Would they see me as the deranged one? I stumbled back, slumping against the wall, the weight of despair wrapping around me like a heavy cloak. I felt trapped, unable to move in a world where the truth could so easily become a weapon against me. The victory I thought was within reach slipped like sand through my fingers. The echo of his laughter rang out, and as the silence settled in again, I crumbled, realizing I had to tread carefully. And deep down, I knew I was about to plunge into the shadows of a threat, way greater than anyone outside could ever understand. Image prompt. A young woman with long dark hair, standing against a wall in a dimly lit living room, her face a mask of confusion and despair. She wears a white sweater slightly oversized, hugging her arms tightly to her chest, as if trying to protect herself from the turmoil around her. The soft light casts anguished shadows around her, emphasizing the storm brewing behind her eyes. I stood there, my world crumbling around me like the fragile towers of a house of cards, as Mark's laughter echoed down the hall, dark and hollow. The weight of betrayal settled heavy in my chest, squeezing the breath from my lungs. I felt as though I was standing on the precipice, peering into the unfathomable abyss below. Seriously, Mark? You think I'm just going to sit idly by while you parade around like some king? I had to reclaim my voice, or I'd lose myself entirely in these shadows. He didn't respond immediately, his back still turned as he rubbed the back of his neck, the muscles taut with tension. I sensed the electricity of confrontation hanging in the air. You're overreacting, he finally replied, his voice dripping with condescension. It's a receipt, for God's sake. A receipt that proves you chose a football game over your child's birth. Do you even understand how despicable that is? I shot back, incredulity fueling my anger. I'm not just being emotional. You abandoned me. He turned to face me, eyes narrowed, mouth twisted in a sneer. Don't make this about you. You're making a scene, like always. If you wanted attention, you've got it. The room felt smaller, clenching around me, my vision narrowing to the source of my pain. Attention is the last thing I want. I want the truth. I want compassion as my partner, not accusations. Compassion, he scoffed, taking a step forward. You have no idea what that word means. You've been drowning in self-pity, vowing to twist this against me. This is pathetic. The ground beneath my feet felt like it had been pulled away, like I was hanging in the air with nothing to catch me. My heart raced in a tempest of resentment, sorrow, and uncertainty. You'll regret underestimating me. I won't let you bully me into silence. I refuse to be your scapegoat. Mark's face hardened, his expression shifting to icy indifference. Be careful with those threats. You wouldn't want to push me too far. I can make your life very difficult. I inhaled sharply, his words slamming against my ribcage like a fist. Difficult? You've already made it impossible. I'm not afraid of your threats. You think I'll collapse under pressure? You're wrong. He closed the distance between us, a smug grin painting his face. You have no idea what you're getting into. You think you can win a fight against me? You might end up on the streets. Is that a threat? I whispered, fear prickling under my skin. Just a reality check for you, he said, voice low, filled with venom. You won't survive without me, darling. The finality in his voice struck deep. I felt all air expel from my lungs, repercussions of his brutal honesty hanging heavy in the room. In that moment, with the raging storm inside me intensifying, I understood just how precarious my position was. I had already felt his grip suffocating. Now it tightened further, a constant reminder of my vulnerability. Look, Mark, I won't be your punching bag. You think you can throw me aside and all will be fine? I raised my chin defiantly, even as my heart trembled. I might just surprise you. But as the words left my mouth, doubt crept in. What power did I hold when the very foundation of my life spun on his whims? I couldn't crumble. I needed to escape this. Before I could digest that thought further, something in his demeanor changed. His eyes turned carefully calculating, as though he was assessing his next power play. Very well. Let's see how strong you think you are when I cut off the money. You're going to wish you never provoked me. I felt a cold rush flood through my veins. You can't do that, I protested, desperation tinging my voice. Oh, I can do anything I want, he replied smugly, gesturing dismissively. You'll never make it on your own. It's too late for that. A sense of despair washed over me, but it ignited something within, a flame of rebellion flickering just beneath the surface. I'll find a way. You don't own me. His laughter echoed in the empty spaces around us, mocking and merciless. You think you can walk out? Good luck with that. I'll make sure you have nothing. And with that, he marched away, leaving only silence in his wake, interrupted by the chilling realization that he wasn't wrong. The grip of fate was tightening, and my life was spiraling into chaos. The following days blended into a blur of emotions, a heady mix of fear and blind determination. I busied myself with the errands around the house, each action feeling like a weak attempt to grasp at normality. But every tick of the clock resonated with a sinister reminder that my time was running out. Then one fateful evening came that would break the final thread connecting my heart to this twisted marriage. The temperature in the house dropped to an unsettling chill as I waited for Mark, clutching my phone in my hands. Outside, the wind howled ominously, like a foreboding echo crashing against my heart. As the distant sound of a car approached, my pulse quickened. When he walked through the door, he wore a dark expression, eyes gleaming with a sense of triumph. Guess what? I had a conversation with the landlord today, he began, his tone dripping with satisfaction. Mark, what did you do? I felt my heart sink, dread creeping through me like a poison. I told him that you're nothing without me, he replied, voice smug. He's agreed to terminate the lease. We're moving out. Moving out? I gasped, reality swirling in front of me like a whirlwind. You can't do that. Watch me, he taunted, leaning against the doorframe as though he owned my very breath. I'll be leaving shortly, and he's made it clear you can't stay. So good luck finding a place, because you won't have the money to back it up. My vision swam with hot tears of helplessness. You're doing this out of spite. You can't take everything from me. I held my head as the world spun wildly with disbelief, my heart pounding against my ribcage. Everything? You think you don't deserve this? He shrugged casually, as though condemning me was a frivolous game. You're in my way, and I refuse to let you drain my resources. You can do this the easy way or the hard way. I have no problem cutting you loose right now. I shook my head, unable to grasp the unraveling reality. You've made this hell. You've taken my family. Now you want to take everything else? Tears streamed down, each drop a declaration of my desperation. Mark surveyed me coolly while the chaos spun inside, an unyielding storm threatening to tear me apart. Face it, without me, you have nothing. No home, no support, no new life. Who's going to want someone like you? With his words piercing deeper than any blade, I was suddenly consumed by despair like a tidal wave crashing down on me. They thought they had destroyed me, I murmured, a choked whisper. But I felt there was still a flicker of strength buried deep within, the embers of courage refusing to die out. I could still fight back. Tethered to the need for survival, I realized I had reached the depths of rock bottom, but I could still rise. It was time to incite those flames, to show him that I was more than a victim, but it would come at a cost. With each passing moment, the truth lingered yet again. It would be me against him, and I could no longer afford to cower in the dark corners of this nightmare. Image. Prompt. A young woman with long dark hair, standing in a dimly lit room with shadows deepening around her, clutching her phone with tears streaming down her cheeks. She wears a faded sweater, eyes filled with both despair and a flicker of hidden determination, while the glow from nearby windows casts a faint light on her defiant expression. As I faced the specter of Mark's betrayal, my resolve hardened. I had hit rock bottom, but I could feel the embers within me igniting. I had a friend in my corner now, Megan, my old confidant and lawyer. For so long I had kept my head down, swallowing every piece of humiliation and hurt he couldn't be bothered to hide. but not anymore. Let's regroup and start gathering the evidence, Megan had said during our last meeting. Her steel blue eyes held a fierce determination, one that matched my own growing spirit. We need to dig deeper. If he thinks he can just cut you off without consequence, he's about to learn a hard lesson. It was a rainy afternoon when we met again at the cafe near my home. The rich aroma of fresh coffee wafted through the air, mingling with the sound of gentle raindrops tapping against the windows. "What do you think we should start with?" I asked, fingers nervously tapping against the table. I felt a mix of excitement and trepidation as the possibilities of what we might uncover swirled through my mind. Megan set her cup down deliberately. "We need to hit him where it hurts. I heard whispers about Mark's firm. Rumors of financial misconduct have been floating around," she said, her voice steady but laced with intensity. "What do you mean?" My eyebrows knit together in confusion. She glanced around before leaning in closer. "I think there's more to his work than he's letting on. If we can find evidence that he's been involved in something illicit at the firm, it could change everything. And if he's hiding something concerning money, well, it may be the straw that breaks the camel's back." I took a deep breath, considering her words. "So we're looking for something criminal? That's putting ourselves at the edge." Megan's eyes sparkled with determination. "Exactly. Gather what you can from his accounts, every interaction. Get into his emails, phone records, whatever you can find. We need to prove that there's more to his absence at the hospital than just work." A shiver of adrenaline coursed through my veins as I nodded. "Okay, I'm in." We exchanged intel for hours, piecing together the plans, each word culminating in a rush of empowerment. I had turned from a victim into a vessel of purpose, poring over spreadsheets, emails, and documents that felt like lifelines anchoring me in this storm of deceit. Later that week, armed with a hidden recorder and a growing collection of evidence, I found myself outside Mark's office. As I walked past the sleek skyscrapers surrounding his firm, my heartbeat was a chaotic metronome. What would I find? This was my first step into the monochrome world of the unknown. With my heart racing, I crept into the office lobby. The scent of freshly polished wood and stale coffee filled the air, while the sound of dull conversations buzzed around me. I felt the anxiety bubble in my stomach as the receptionist eyed me with a mix of suspicion and curiosity. "Samantha?" a voice said. I turned to find Megan standing next to me, a swift beacon of comfort amidst the tremors of uncertainty. "You ready?" She nudged, her expression encouraging. "What if we get caught, Meg?" I whispered, fidgeting with my bag. "Then we play it cool. Stick to the plan. Remember, you're just a concerned wife here to discuss your partner's suspicious activity." After the receptionist buzzed me through, we cautiously made our way into the boardroom. There were piles of documents occupying the mahogany table, just waiting to be exploited. My heart raced as I approached Mark's office, stealing glances at the bustling employees. "We'll need to act fast," she said, gesturing for me to keep an eye on the entrance. "Just concentrate." My fingers trembled as I flipped through papers strewn across the table, tax forms, charts, and notes that looked official enough, but I felt a nagging itch in the back of my mind. My fear began to morph into something more potent. I had to find something, anything, that could tip the scales against him. Suddenly, I stopped. A brittle file lay tucked behind the others, a key piece of evidence. I opened it slowly, my pulse thundering in my ears. "Are you okay?" Megan murmured, glancing over my shoulder. I could hardly reply as I scanned the contents of the file. My breath caught in my throat. "Megan, look at this!" She leaned in closer, eyes widening as she comprehended the information unfolding before us. "Stolen funds. It says here Mark authorized transferring money from the company's clients into offshore accounts." I felt my stomach drop. "This is big, Meg. This could ruin him. It can also protect you," she said, urgency lining her features. "We need to backtrack, find out where these funds are going, who else is involved." I felt a chill run through me, matching the rain falling outside. If this gets out, he'll be done. Megan nodded, determination fortifying her. "Let's gather all that we can. We can present this to the authorities." The exhilaration surged through me, and I realized this was my moment. I would lift the veil off the lies. Mark's reign would be shattered under the weight of his own indiscretions. "Let's do this then," I whispered, empowered by the burning fire inside me. Just then, the door swung open and Mark stepped in, eyes scanning the room. My heart dropped as I moved away from the table, blending into the shadows. Would he see me? Would he know what I had discovered? Megan and I shared a look laden with urgency and fear as he walked further into the room, oblivious. "We need to get out now," I whispered, and we quietly retreated back toward the door. "Do you have everything?" she asked. "Yes, I think so. God, please let this work," I said, my heart racing even faster. As we slipped out, I felt the adrenaline course through me like never before. I was on the precipice of unveiling Mark's truth, the very secret that could change everything. I took a deep breath as we passed the receptionist, who was still engrossed in her work, and stepped out into the cool air, feeling both exhilarated and terrified by the power we had just unearthed. With the evidence in our hands, I knew that this was not just the beginning of reclaiming my life. It was the moment I had been waiting for, a moment of resurrection born from the ashes of betrayal. Image prompt. A young woman with long dark hair, standing in a dimly lit boardroom with papers scattered across the table, her expression a mix of shock and determination. She wears a fitted blazer, clutching files tightly to her chest. Her eyes gleam with a newfound power, reflecting the storm brewing outside the glass walls of the firm. As I drove through the familiar streets, I felt an unsettling calm wash over me. Each turn took me deeper into my resolve, mixing anticipation with a hint of dread. I was about to transform my narrative from victim to victor, and I would do it by playing the part of the defeated woman, just long enough to get what I needed. The evening was draped in a thin veil of fog, casting an eerie glow on the streetlights. I pulled into the parking lot of the upscale restaurant where the charity gala was being held. The scene was striking. A flurry of laughter mingled with the clinking of glasses and the soft swelling of a string quartet. Mark was one of the key speakers of the night, and I knew this was my chance to catch him off guard. "Are you really going to go through with this?" Megan asked, leaning against my car as I adjusted the rearview mirror, checking the neat bun I had perfected. Her expression mirrored my own complicated emotions, compassion and concern. "I have to," I replied, my voice steady but hollow. "We're not just holding him accountable. We're laying the foundation for my own future. Just remember, if it goes south, call me," she urged, touching my arm gently. "You've got this." I nodded, stepping into the restaurant, the rich aroma of roasted meats and fresh herbs wafting through the air. It felt surreal to be here again, surrounded by the extravagant setup of white tablecloths and crystal chandeliers, a stark contrast to the chaos brewing in my heart. As I entered the gala, chatter erupted around me, laughter spilling like champagne. I picked my way through the crowd, blending into the ambiance, a moth drawn to the flame of my plan. I spotted Mark across the room, sharing animated stories with a small group of colleagues. "Who would have thought that you'd finally come out of your shell?" one woman chirped, her voice coated in syrupy enthusiasm. "We thought you were a recluse," Mark chuckled, his confidence sparkling under the dim lighting. "Well, I like to make an appearance every now and then," he replied smoothly, but the smirk on his face sent a bolt of anger radiating through me. Pushing down the fury, I forced a small smile. I could do this. I had to keep calm, maintain the illusion of being the forgiving wife. "Hey, sweetie," I called out as I approached, forcing an energy into my voice. "I thought I'd surprise you." His eyes widened, and for a brief second, confusion washed over his face. "Samantha, you look..." He hesitated, searching for a compliment. "Perfect?" I offered, my smile unwavering, an internal storm swirling beneath the surface. "Just like you. You're the center of attention tonight." Thanks," he muttered, trying to regain composure. "What are you doing here? I thought you had plans." I shrugged, changed my mind, figured it was time I showed my support. "You shouldn't have. It's a whole affair. You really didn't need to come," he insisted as I stood beside him, throwing a warning glance at the enraptured crowd. "Maybe not, but now that I'm here, let's make an evening of it," I chirped, flinging my arm over his shoulder as if he were my best friend, angling for our guests to sense a united front. As the evening wore on, I subtly observed the room, mentally mapping where everyone stood. My heart raced as I watched Mark mingle effortlessly, seemingly unaware of the trap I was meticulously laying. "Mark," I said, squeezing his hand, feigning affection. "You should take a picture with me. Let's capture this moment." A chorus of laughter erupted around us as we posed, his smile plastered across his face. I snapped a few photos, but the tension thrummed beneath my facade. Each click of the camera built my confidence, a constant reminder of everything I stood to reclaim. "Show me those later," he said, feigning interest, his eyes drifting to his phone as the screen lit up with notifications. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. It took everything in me not to shout that he was still tethered to the facade of his charm. Later, as we moved towards the bar, I leaned casually against the polished counter, feigning innocence. "Mark, what do you think about the gala? Isn't it lovely?" He waved a dismissive hand, suddenly more focused on the drinks. "It's great, but it's mostly a networking event." He turned, placing his hand on my back, but to me, their laughter, his distracted demeanor, felt listless. I took a deep breath, shifting my tone slightly. I couldn't help but notice the office was buzzing about some funding issues. I started carefully, watching for any alarm on his face. "What are you talking about?" he asked, a slight edge creeping into his tone. "The complaints. I didn't know if that was bothering you." I maintained an innocent gaze, masking the storm in my heart. Mark's expression hardened. "It's nothing, really. Just some disgruntled employees. Isn't it remarkable how easily they forget loyalty?" I probed lightly. "You lead them, and yet they choose to bite the hand that feeds them." He paused, lips forming into an unnervingly calm smile, his defense mechanism for when he sensed the tide beginning to turn. "They'll regret it, I assure you." I nodded, searching his eyes for a flicker of guilt. "Mark, if there were secrets or something faulty happening, we'd need to deal with them, together. Let's talk about this later." His dismissive tone dismissed my words entirely. "Right," I said, keeping my voice smooth. In that moment, I decided a gentle nudge was needed. "I get it. You've had a long day. I'm just tired of discussing work," he snapped, frustration flaring in his eyes. Just then, I made my move. "You're right. How about we focus on the positive? I have something to share, something that might shock you." His interest piqued, brows raised slightly. "What is it?" "I was thinking about things we can do, how we can repair our bond." A calm breath escaped my lips, and I lowered my voice just enough for him to lean forward. "I've called a few marriage counselors. We could start fresh, perhaps get together with couples from this gala, establish connections." Surprised, he blinked for a moment, the facade faltering as he regained his composure. "That's unexpected." "Why now?" "Because I'm ready to forgive," I said softly, letting my gaze linger on his. "But I need you to be completely honest with me." "About what?" His defensiveness returned. "About everything," I replied, matching his intensity. I could feel the suffocating weight of the truth pressing against us. "I just want an open conversation. I mean, it's time we laid everything on the table." "Fine," he said icily. "But the ball's in your court. If you're going this route, you better be prepared for the consequences." "I can handle it, Mark. I need you to trust me." As the evening progressed, I continued to weave my subtle deceit while laying the bait, building my trap. He was blissfully unaware of the intricacies of my plan. I led him to a point where he believed he was in control. With each shared laugh, each silly selfie we took, I felt the net closing tighter. He was reveling in his own reflections, unaware of the storm brewing beneath his inconspicuous skin, until he stepped into the chaos I had orchestrated. "Mark," I began, as lights dimmed in preparation for the keynote speaker, "there's something I want to discuss when everything calms down, something that might help us find clarity." "Sure, whatever you want," he replied, waving off my words. I felt the ground steady beneath me as I leaned closer, whispering softly, "Look at it this way. At least this night ends with some answers, for both of us." And there it was, the moment painted in delicate clarity. This was my trap, where Mark would unknowingly step into the light I had created, unable to twist it against me. His arrogance sharpened my resolve, and soon enough, he wouldn't be able to escape the very web he had woven around my heart. As I stepped away, the overwhelming rush of anticipation and fear danced through me. I had to decide, forgive or destroy. "Tell me in the comments," echoed in my thoughts, an anthem of our long festering wounds. Image prompt: a young woman with long dark hair, standing confidently in an upscale restaurant surrounded by elegantly dressed guests. She wears a sparkling black dress and radiates an aura of calm determination. The ambiance is lit softly, casting a warm glow over her as she holds a glass of champagne with a secretive smile, ready to unveil her plans. The air crackled with anticipation as I stood before the gathered crowd at the gala, my heart racing. This was it, the moment marked by months of endurance and determination, where I would finally expose the truth that lay hidden beneath the glossy surface of Mark's so-called perfect world. I stepped onto the stage, the warmth of the spotlight hitting my skin like a comforting embrace. The room fell silent. A sea of faces turned toward me, each one illuminated by soft candlelight. I glanced around, my gaze settling on Mark, who sat front and center, an innocent smile plastered across his face, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. The flicker of confidence ignited in my chest strengthened with every breath. "Good evening, everyone," I began, my voice even, echoing through the expansive hall. "I want to thank you all for coming to support this incredible cause. Tonight isn't just about the charity, it's also about truth, honor, and integrity." I leaned forward, making eye contact with several guests, letting the weight of my words sink in. As whispers began to ripple through the crowd, I continued, "You see, some of us have been fortunate enough in life to share love and stability. Yet, some of us have encountered betrayal masked as devotion." I looked directly at Mark, but often, the curtain is lifted just in time to reveal the darkness lurking behind a facade. His smile faltered for the first time. "What are you doing, Samantha?" he hissed, glancing nervously around the room. Ignoring him, I turned to face the audience. Mark, my husband, was supposed to be by my side during one of the most critical moments of our lives, the birth of our child. Instead, he chose to attend a football game. I could feel the heaviness of disbelief wash over the room, eyes widening, gasps circulating like ripples in water. Surely there were clients to tend to, deals to seal, but priorities fell out of alignment, I declared, thrusting forward with every syllable. He made a conscious choice to be somewhere else, somewhere far from the life we built together. "What are you talking about?" he interrupted, his tone defensive. "This is ridiculous." "This isn't ridiculous. This is your truth," I fired back, feeling emboldened by the raw power coursing through me. "You think playing the martyr will shield you from reality? I have proof, Mark. Your own negligence made you the villain of this story." I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone, scrolling through photos I had captured of him at the game that fateful day, joyous and carefree. I turned the screen toward the audience, the image illuminating his unscrupulous smile against the backdrop of cheering fans. "Tell me, is this really a man committed to his family?" I asked, a hush falling over the crowd as they leaned in closer. Captivated, the tension clung to the air like a suffocating weight, a mix of shock and sympathy encircling the room. "Those are just images," Mark protested frantically, rising from his seat, his composure wavering. "They don't prove anything. Not just images, my love. A poignant reminder of your abandonment," I shot back with poise. "You wrapped yourself in the expectation of success while I was left to navigate the storm of your choices alone." He stepped forward, a shadow of desperation cloaking his confidence. "You're tearing this family apart." "Oh, is that so?" I retorted, fire igniting in my voice. "You did that yourself the moment you disregarded our family for your own pursuits. But here's the truth. You're not just hiding behind misleading smiles. You're concealing the secrets of your financial indiscretions." Several guests gasped, an unexpected thrill coursing through the crowd. I continued, "And let me share something even more bizarre. I have been in touch with several individuals from your firm who have documented their own concerns over your actions, financial misconduct that they've been too fearful to address until now. Perhaps you'll be facing more than just divorce proceedings soon." The vigor in my voice buoyed me as I watched a storm flicker in Mark's eyes, the veneer of control dissolving before everyone present. "You can't prove anything. Everyone knows me," he shouted defiantly. "Now they're starting to see the man behind the mask," I countered, feeling immense satisfaction with every word of humiliation and clarity that spilled from my lips. "This is not just about me anymore. You can't escape the grip of reality forever." Murmurs erupted in the crowd, ripples of disbelief mingling with support. I had gained their attention and sympathy, stepping into a space of power I had not felt in far too long. The exhilaration of reclaiming my truth surged, propelling me forward. "Mark," I said, lowering my voice to a chilling whisper, "this is your curtain call. You may have shielded yourself in secrets, But tonight, the truth stands tall. Your reign of terror ends here. I turned my back to him, emphasizing my newfound autonomy. As I stepped away from the stage, thunderous applause echoed through the room. The spectacle had succeeded. Villains stripped of their masks, humiliation front and center, and the audience sparked with empathy and intrigue. Mark stood there, aghast and hollow as the cacophony of chaos faded into the background, leaving him alone in the reality of his downfall. As people approached me with reassurance and admiration, I felt a weight lift, a clarity washing over me. No longer would I allow others' impressions to dictate my identity. No longer would I walk the fine line of complacency wrapped in deception. I had stepped into the light, and I knew that this was just the beginning, an execution of my rebirth. Image prompt: a young woman with long dark hair, standing confidently on a stage surrounded by an audience, her expression filled with fierce determination. She wears an elegant black dress that enhances her poise, while her body language radiates strength. The spotlight shines on her, illuminating the truth she is unveiling, while the crowd erupts in applause, their expressions a mix of shock and admiration. As the dust finally settled on my confrontation with Mark, a sense of calm washed over me. The chaos of the past months felt like a wild storm now retreating into the distance. I had unleashed the truth, and with it came a bittersweet sense of relief. The exhilarating high of standing up to him remained, but it couldn't erase the memory of what I had endured. Life began to unravel for him in ways I had never anticipated. Mark's clenched fist of authority crumbled, ground to dust by the very secrets he had kept so meticulously hidden. Calculating, ruthless, he had built his kingdom of lies, and now it was time for the wreckage to catch up with him. 2 months after the gala, Mark was summoned for a series of meetings regarding allegations from former colleagues, each accusation more dire than the last. I followed the high-profile coverage of how his financial misconduct was exposed, each headline like a stone dropping within me, sending ripples of satisfaction through the once murky waters of my sorrow. So it turns out, the missing funds linked straight back to offshore accounts. And wouldn't you know, his important client was as fictitious as the heart he cast aside. The news anchor's voice echoed through my living room as I flopped onto the plush couch, basking in a satisfying glow. "Can you believe that?" I laughed. A rich, sarcastic laughter that finally felt freeing. "You took me for granted, Mark." Weeks passed, the momentum of his unraveling gaining traction. Conversations buzzed around town, whispers etched with incredulity over his downfall. Bank accounts drained, assets seized, and soon his entire structure of control crumbled like a house faced with a tornado. I sat with Megan at the cafe, where it all began, the same sun-drenched spot we had carved out months before. The scent of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the sweetness of pastries and laughter nearby, an aroma that felt like a distant memory of innocence, now painted richly in vibrant colors of hope. "I was worried there for a bit," Megan admitted, "but seeing him brought to his knees just proves how he never expected the truth to catch up with him. Did you ever think you'd witness this?" "Honestly, no," I confessed, stirring my coffee as I watched the steam curl. "But every day since the gala has been like a rebirth. I've never felt so at peace." "You're really different now," she said, eyes shining with pride. "You've stepped into your authenticity in a whole new way." I think the hardest part wasn't just the confrontation, but finding the strength to shed all that weight. "I've been liberated," I admitted, allowing the feeling to settle in my chest like a soft blanket. As we spoke, I felt the soft vibrations of laughter and conversations float around us, a soothing background chorus, chanting melodies of resilience that ignited fresh energy within me. "And to think," I said, shaking my head slightly, "I used to feel lost, beholden to his shadows." Mark's world had collapsed entirely. He found himself grappling with the absurdities of his entitled manipulation. By the time he was stride length away from facing criminal charges, I knew he was mired in bankruptcy. Misery wrapped around him like a shroud, leaving him heartbroken and powerless. It was more than I had ever hoped for, and it felt just. I couldn't help but relish the karma that had seeped into his life as I unwrapped the fresh blooms of my own. Each day, I carved out paths of success, finding new opportunities in my career, discovering talents I never even dared to explore. The design world beckoned me, and I embraced it. The transformation ignited around me. The old apartment, once filled with shadows, brightened by my design touches and fresh energy. I arranged the space, filling it with warmth that mirrored the healing journey within me. I no longer watched the front door with trepidation. That chapter was closed. Instead, I embraced the sweet scent of blooming jasmine and the cozy corners draped in golden light. As days melted into weeks, I looked upon my newfound life with pride. I ventured into new territories, my confidence burgeoning like the petals of the flowers bursting into bloom around me. I'd turned my grief into a canvas I could paint anew. "Are you ready?" Megan asked, when she surprised me on one particularly sunny afternoon, with a new project proposal swirling beneath her confident gaze. I had rekindled friendships I once thought were lost to the periphery of my old life. "Ready for what?" I asked, tilting my head as she brought forth ideas that felt equally thrilling and daunting. I leaned closer, anticipation thrumming through my veins. "For the grand reopening of the gallery downtown. Your work deserves to be celebrated, and I want you to showcase everything you've created." "Oh, I'd love that," I beamed, the sheer vibrancy of her excitement infectious. Together, we pored over designs, colors, and inspirations, creating a symphony of ideas that resonated with hope. Each brushstroke became a testament, revealing how much triumph could emerge from adversity. As the day approached for my exhibit, I stood before my canvas, my heart brimming with gratitude and renewed purpose. Mark's miserable portrait mirrored my past, a cautionary tale I had long since transcended. His name might linger in the air, but I was no longer tied to the cacophony of his echoes. As far as I was concerned, Mark was a passing thought, a fleeting shadow from a life I had outgrown. With one final glance at my artwork, I faced the door. This wasn't just about revealing my journey. It was about shining a light on those who had lived under the shadow of manipulation and betrayal. With renewed determination, I stepped forward into the light, ready for what lay ahead, heart wide open, a victorious warrior standing tall, embracing the epitome of my survival. Subscribe for more karma. As I stepped away from the platform and into the warmth of the embrace, anticipation and excitement thrumming through the crowd, a flicker of thought flared in my mind about the next story waiting to be told. A tale of a sister entangled in deception, redemption, and the courageous leap into the unknown. Image. Prompt. A young woman with long, dark hair, standing confidently in front of a bright gallery filled with breathtaking art pieces, her expression radiating success and power. She wears a flowing white dress, symbolizing purity and renewal, as she smiles warmly at friends gathered around, an aura of triumph surrounding her.